This is Circa Ignem podcast number 032 with our very special guest tonight, Mr. Joe Perry.
Hey.
Thanks for coming on the show, Joe.
I'm excited, man. Felt like a little kid getting ready for Disneyland.
I'm glad you feel that way. That's exciting to me, and I think to all of us.
Yeah.
Nick, good evening.
Good evening.
Manny, good evening.
Good evening.
We also have Gerardo here with us. I don't know why I'm pointing at him because there's no video, but
It's so that we know.
he's off mic, so if you hear kind of mumbling in the background, that's him. All right. Joe's passion is his career. He's grateful to be able to say that. With years of experience in the home loan industry and as a mortgage banker skilled in banking, credit analysis, and loan origination, he feels a high sense of satisfaction and joy anytime he's able to work with a client and help them attain what they need. A little bit of history. He was homeschooled from 5th grade all the way to college and has, for the most part, been self-taught. His mom would give him a math textbook and advise when he needed to be, where he needed to be by a certain time and when he needed to finish that or be there and figure it out, essentially, in quotes. He started his own business with his younger brother, clear-cutting land. I want to know more about that later. When he was 13, that taught him the value of hard work, relationships with his customers, hearing their vision and executing it, as well as the value of the dollar. At 17, he moved to Fresno to live with his grandma and grandpa. He attended California State University of Fresno, spent a summer in Virginia at Virginia Tech, participating in their chemical engineering program. You thought about pursuing a PhD?
That was the game plan.
Okay, awesome. And in chemical engineering. However, his research, or he realized that wasn't for him. So for his research, he won the 3M Corporation Award, which is awesome. That's a big deal. Graduated from CSUF in 2001. Magna cum laude. Mm-hmm. Dang, bro.
Wow.
Minor in mathematics and history. His wife, Jill, he calls her Cookie, and he met at a music festival. Which music festival?
A B95 rave at the fairgrounds.
Nice. That's Cyberfest 2000.
Oh, man. I got stories.
their junior year and have been together ever since. That's beautiful, man. After graduation, tried to get hired pretty much everywhere. A friend took a chance on you and hired you for Household Finance Corporation, where you worked for a year before Wells Fargo Bank. Cookie and you don't have any children, but have a number of cats. You've both been cat lovers since you were children. You collect basically any
much
strays,
everything.
any cats,
Yeah.
and you're big wine people. This is great. That's awesome, man. I like
Thanks,
this.
man. Yeah. I got to go back and rework, I think, the first part of that, because my passion these days is my faith. It has nothing to do with my career. Mm-hmm. So I wrote that, I'd say, like 5 years ago. So I got to go back and redraft.
No, but that's awesome, right? I love that there is the revisionist, element of like, oh, this needs to adjust. But I love that you can formulate that.
Sure,
right?
I appreciate that.
Yeah, because when we ask people, sometimes they're like, 3 to 5 sentences about myself. Yeah. They're like, where do I start?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, the book that we chose today is called A Higher Call, written by Adam Makos. It's a biography. Highly recommend it. I'm going to actually start reading this after I pick this excerpt. And I love Adam Makos. He's written a number of other ones. I'll recommend them to you off mic that are bad. This is page 141. Chapter title is The Farm Boy. The B-17's olive drab pate blended with the lush green mountains as the bomber flew at 2,000 feet. The plane rattled as it bounced in the turbulence from warm air rising off the mountains. 2 young men sat at the bomber's controls. They could have been mistaken for teenagers who had stolen the plane had they not been wearing olive flight suits with silver wings on their chests and garrison caps on their heads with radio headsets over top. The young men had opened the cockpit side windows and their clothes flapped in the breeze. On their left shoulders sat the blue circular patch of the American Army Air Forces, a white star with a red center and bright yellow wings sprouting from it. The plane's pilot sat in the left seat. Although he was only 20 years old, he wore the gold bar of a second lieutenant on his tan shirt collar. His face was square, and his brown eyes gazed up beneath short, flat eyebrows. His name was Charlie Brown. Charlie's eyes looked worried. Although a smile spanned his thin lips, he always looked this way, even when things were going well. His looks were ordinary, his build thin to average, but Charlie was a thinker. For his age, he was emotionally deep and quite happy to talk silently to himself, the best companion he had ever known.
That's good, man.
Why is that book so impactful?
Well, so the story is actually a parallel story. So it's a story about a young man who grew up in the United States and went on to become a B-17 pilot during World War II.
Yeah.
The other parallel part of the story is a young man who became a Luftwaffe fighter pilot in Germany. And I won't spoil it for the book, but basically they meet in the air. The German pilot was raised devout Catholic, and he had a decision to make on whether or not he would shoot down this defenseless B-17 and kill everyone aboard. And he made a different choice, which I think is extremely powerful. So like I said, I'm not going to spoil the book.
No.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. One of the reasons why when you guys asked me, some books that I've read that have been impactful, is I love the lives of the saints.
Yeah.
And being able to read about people who actually put their faith into action, and especially when these are current stories that all of us can relate to. That one just really spoke to me. So when you asked me for a book, it was easy. I just walked over to the bookshelf and I'm like, bam, bam, bam. It's those three.
Yeah. Out of Makos is fantastic. The one, I'll just say it on mic. The one that I've read is called the Spearhead. And he does that. So he's known for, in his biographies, for juxtaposing the two sides. So same era, World War II, but he focused on a specific Panzer tank and a specific Abrams tank unit. And
definitely send me the title.
Oh man, it is so good, and it's the same. It's beautiful in the sense that he's showing you the humanity of both sides, right? So we as Americans always get this painting of the badass Americans, we're badass, and we are. But he's also showing us, and we see the humanity because that's who we gravitate towards. But then when he paints the picture of these Germans, all of a sudden you're like, oh, they're not all bad people, right? They got captured, or not captured, but they got drawn up into something that they basically had to do, or they were killed, right? And some of them were in the military long before Hitler took over. So for them, it's well, this is all I've known. This is my career, and I'm proud to be what I am, even though they actually, in their conscience, are really conflicted about what they're fighting for.
Sure. So, that's a great summary.
Yeah.
Was there a movie about that book?
Not to my knowledge.
It sounds
would make a great story, though.
It sounds familiar.
There's the Apple on Apple streaming. There's a show. I forget the name of it, but it's about a B-17 squadron.
Interesting.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. I think you're thinking of Unbroken.
I'm not sure, but it just sounds familiar to me, the story.
Yeah. Unbroken's Louis Zamperini, and he's the one that was an Olympic runner, and then went Army as well, Army Air Corps, and flew. So the B-17s, the Flying Fortresses, were beasts. They're very hard to take down. They had, later on in that chapter, it talks about how they were flying to go get outfitted with 25 basically miniguns on that's why it's called the Flying Fortress. You couldn't take them down.
Wow.
Because these turrets could spin basically 360 and this way. So it basically could shoot anything in basically almost any direction. There was a few basically blind spots on the plane. Conversely, Louis Zamperini's flying the B-25s, which their failure rate, not even in combat, was upwards of 60%.
Oh, wow.
So they were flying this plane that just had terrible mechanical problems, and then compound that with I'm also flying into battle with this thing. So it's nuts hearing his story. So anything else on A Higher Call?
No, but I wanted to say for your legions of intergalactic fans, myself included, I feel like saying long-time listener, first-time caller. Awesome. We're all camped out around a fire outside, and these guys are smoking cigars. Gerardo's got a corncob pipe. The stars are overhead, and so I'm excited to tell some good stories.
Thank you for painting the picture.
I don't think a UFO just flew over. Radio broadcaster for Facebook.
That is what you just painted is exactly the whole catalyst behind this. Is like having these types of conversations that happen naturally around the fire, but actually like recorded, so that like people can experience it maybe in their living room.
Well, I'm excited to be in the presence of Manny too. I mean, he's a global treasure.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I don't know what to say to that. But thank you.
All right. So, not so lightning round questions. What's your wake up routine like, Joe?
So I'd say I'm a very disciplined person. So I get up at 5 o'clock every morning.
Okay.
Even on mornings that I want to sleep in, it's not happening. My body's just like 5 o'clock, and I immediately feet on the floor. Cookie and I have not been blessed with children. We've been married for over 20 years.
Okay.
And this is going to sound like a lot. I'm not bragging or complaining. This is literally a highlight in my life. But we take care of 18 cats.
Okay.
Wow.
So, as I'm walking down the hallway, they're all around my legs as I'm going out to the kitchen. I read the news until about 5:50. Okay. And then every morning, 7 days a week, rain, lightning, freezing, I put on my tactical vest and I get 5 miles in the neighborhood, just start my day. And that's my, I won't go off on a long tangent here, but a number of us are going through this Exodus 90 program. Yep. And one of the disciplines is an hour of prayer. And I'm really thankful for that. It's actually been part of my routine for almost 2 years. So when I began getting on the road in the morning, it started with the mileage and the physical exertion, and now it's moved on to it's my time with the big man upstairs.
Yeah.
And that is, it's become almost sacred to me. So as far as like what is my morning routine, that's it. Up at 5:50, brush my teeth, put on my vest, stretch, out on the road.
That's awesome. The reason why I was lifting my fist is that's I've dropped out of the habit on that specific one, but I do it anytime I'm walking with Jamie, my wife. I throw the vest on, and typically it's at least 3 miles.
Do you have it all patched up?
What's that?
Do you have your vest all patched up?
No, I don't. I'm not cool like you.
Joe
has a lot of sweat on it, though. I can tell you that.
Joe has some awesome patches on his. I've seen it.
Send me a pic.
Oh, for sure. You can make that my profile picture on your phone.
Yes. Love it. Okay. What I love about that, too, is like there isn't this question, I should say. There isn't an expectation, right? Like it's like your wake up routine is like unique to you, right? So it's always interesting just hearing like what people kind of, especially now that we've been doing this for a while, like, and people know the questions coming, like what matters to people. Sure. And then you're like, oh, that's cool, All right. How many times have you been pulled over or interacted with the police?
Oh man. Okay, so that's a good one. I'm gonna say like 8 or 9, but I'll just tell one story.
All right.
They're all stories amongst themselves, and one of them was only like 4 minutes ago.
You can do 2. Give us 2.
So one of them, let's see, it was about 10 years ago. We were, once a year, the whole family would get together on the coast over in Cambria or Cayucas, and the whole family was going to a winery, and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. We're headed to this winery, and my wife and I had a really cool car, big horsepower, big turbos. My mother-in-law's in the back seat, and I think it's like Highway 46. It's that one that goes from the one like towards Paso.
Yep.
So as I'm going uphill, I can hear the turbo spooling. I've got the sound system on. The sunroof is back. I look over my right shoulder, and there's the Pacific Ocean. And out loud, I say, "This day can't get any better." And I crest the hill, and there's no one on the road, right? I crest the hill, and there's this highway patrol officer standing outside of his car with the gun, just pointing at whoever's coming. And I look in the and this is right as I say, "This day couldn't get any better," and then bam, got nailed with radar.
Certainly could get worse.
Well, what I did is I just I pulled over immediately. I mean, I think it was going like 70 something miles an hour. And I just pulled over, and the guy obviously had to jump in his car and everything. But he walked up and he was like, "Hey man, I really appreciate you, not trying to make a run for it or any of that kind of stuff." I'm like, "I know you're just doing your job." Yeah. I said, "It's just ironic that I literally said, 'This is an awesome day,' and you zapped me with your gun like 5 seconds later." So he was cool about it, and I hadn't gotten a ticket in a while.
Said, "Not today, son."
Now I'm curious, what car was it?
Oh, my wife had a really cool Porsche.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so.
What make? What model? Or sorry, you said make, but what model?
Macan Turbo Performance Edition.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was like when we built it was the first one in North America. It was really cool. Yeah, we've been very blessed to be able to have some cool stuff over the years. And,
so the reason we're going to laugh for a good 3 or 4 years, this was, I want to say 8th grade through like middle of high school. Matthew, Luke, me, and Joseph. Yeah, so
I think you're talking about the disciples for a second.
Sorry,
Nope,
my
just the
brothers,
Spencers.
my brothers. That whole group. So it's that we're all together. There's a group of us. So Matthew's the oldest of that grouping. Luke, me, and then Joseph. We got into Need for Speed Porsche edition. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was asking is, I could tell you for a long time, not anymore, but when you said mechanic, dude, those are nice. Yeah. And so the way it starts out with Need for Speed is you start out with like the 1911, like the OG, super old school, real hard to drive.
Oh, for
and
sure.
You have to keep getting better and driving, and then like you upgrade, and then you get into those, and you're like smoking people. Like you're just like, yeah, bye.
Well, it was funny. I guess the footnote of that story of the highway patrol officer being outside of his car is we have a Valentine radar system, and it was just on kind of like the seek mode, and then as soon as we crest the hill, it's just like we got missile lock. Yep, dead.
Do you still have it?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's cool. All right. Second story. I want a second one. Come on, Joe.
Oh, second one was...
I mean, the first one was pretty cool.
Yeah,
So.
that was cool.
He just tells it again.
No, actually...
Same story, different car.
I can give you the very first ticket that I got. I grew up in Auburn, above Sacramento, and like your intro, I was homeschooled, and this is back in the late 80s. So back then, if you told somebody you were homeschooled...
Stigma.
Oh, yeah. It was like, is there something wrong with your kids?
Yeah.
Are you guys in a cult?
Yeah.
There was no support or structure.
Yeah, nothing
If you wanted to
whatsoever.
learn, you bought books in a box and just did it yourself.
Yeah.
So my dad and I saved up a bunch of my money, and my dad and I built a 1969 Chevy Nova.
Nice.
And it had, we put in a crate motor, big stroker engine, suspend. Okay, I did what every responsible college student does, and I spent all of my student loan money on my car. And it was my very first semester at the local community college, and I went to grab lunch, and I'm sitting at a stoplight, and this Impala Super Sport, like I think it's like the long one, but he's got a blower out the hood. He pulls up next to me. I look ahead, I'm 16 years old at the time, right? I look ahead, the light's red. I look over at him, he looks at me, I look back at the light, he revs his motor, and I was off like a rocket. So the only thing I completely missed on is like 20 yards ahead under the tree was a highway patrol car having lunch. and I didn't even see him. And I went full launch control, and the next thing I know, in my rearview mirror, I see red and blue, red and blue. The guy pulls me over, and I said, well, what about the other car? And he's like, well, he stopped. You kept going. And the best part of the story is, at the time, my dad was an insurance agent. Okay. So that was an awkward conversation to have when I got home.
He's like, thanks, son. Yeah. Thanks for increasing my premium.
Exactly.
I wonder if it was Jason that pulled him over.
What year was this?
This had to, in 1996.
He was up there.
But not that. No. It'd be interesting to talk to him. It'd be fascinating. What I was going to ask was, so if he was eating lunch, were his lights on?
Oh, he was under a tree just chilling. He was like hanging out.
Yeah. Because that's like, and this might be prior to this law, but they actually have to have, in order to pull you over, like Jason talked about this, like he's giving me the inside scoop. He's like, they have to technically, like they can't just, like they could be eating lunch in their car, but they're like off the clock at that point. So if they don't have like certain lights on, and it's typically like the running lights,
right,
they're not operational anymore.
Gotcha.
So like even if they wanted to, they'd have to just be like, not my problem. They can radio, right? Like they could call it like team and say, hey, saw this, make, model, color, it's coming your way, but they can't. Or I should say they're not supposed to. Not that they can't, but that also might be prior to when that became.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The Wild Wild West.
So I'm sensing a theme here with fast cars and.
Yeah. I've slowed down a lot, man. I drive like a 90-year-old woman at this point. We have some pretty cool toys, but yeah, I don't drive fast.
It's funny how that works. Jamie was the same way. Well, I was too. I'm not trying to throw her under the bus, but it's funny. Like all of a sudden, it's just like, nah, I'm good. Just gonna cruise. no need to be in a rush. All right. What is your greatest accomplishment to date?
Married my wife. 100%.
100%.
Yeah, Cookie's literally the center of my galaxy. I mean, I could give you write War and Peace for you about all the amazing things she is. What I would say is I'm the most thankful for, and I know we're going to get into it with this podcast, but when Cookie and I met, so I'm a convert. She's a cradle Catholic, but when she and I met at this party, if you would have said, like, where is your faith at, or what do you think of God, I would have given you a Nietzsche quote and said, God is dead. And I would have just left it right there and probably gone the other direction. So, Cookie's the one that, brought me to the foot of the cross, I would say, and gave me the realness. And I'm very thankful and grateful for that. So, in terms of, I don't know that I would call marrying my wife an accomplishment, but it's the greatest thing that happened to me.
Yeah, and that falls that's what we try and say too. Yeah. There was another word that we used to have, but it's not showing up on the notes. Yeah. But it's like accomplishment or achievement or something like that.
Oh yeah, dude, she's my best friend in the galaxy. I mean, we're together 364 days a year. Yeah. We both, well, obviously we live together, but for 19 years at the bank, our offices were even 40 feet down the hall from each other. So we lived together, worked together, played together, lunch together.
That's cool.
So yeah,
just a deep friendship.
Oh yeah, she's my best friend in the galaxy.
It should be. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
It's awesome, man. Anything else?
That's the pinnacle, man.
Yeah, I did hear earlier today, I forgot what I was listening to, that Nietzsche was Hitler's favorite philosopher.
Really?
I don't know that for sure, but I don't doubt it.
Is that like on a Reddit subforum?
No. I was listening to some podcast. I can't remember what.
Reddit subforum. Just like, what crackpot are you listening to?
Actually, I think it was Father Carlos Martin.
That's awesome.
Anyways, we can move past that.
I really want to hear this, like when you and Cookie met, because if you're in that like mindset and philosophical like point in your life, yeah, we'll get there when.
Oh yeah, I got some great stories, and I'm really excited because a lot of these stories, even many of my friends have never been heard. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, it's. Thank you very much for asking me to be on this.
No, absolutely, man. What is your greatest struggle with being Catholic, Christian, or with life in general?
Such a great question. nobody's ever to know it all or to learn it all, but I think I mentioned earlier, I live a life of pretty severe discipline, and I like to know what's going to happen or what direction that I'm headed. Or what the next step in the process might be. I wouldn't use the word struggle anymore. My very first confession was with Father Blessing at St. Anthony of Padua.
Such a beautiful man.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic because I had not just a little bit of baggage, I had like an airport full of baggage for my first confession, and then I didn't realize it was also face to face, and he was so gracious and kind, and
what a wonderful first experience.
And my penance, so I mean, I unloaded some stuff. I mean, I'm glad the police went around for that confession. My penance was Sister Faustina's picture where it says, "Jesus, I trust in you."
Yeah.
And it was just to focus on that one sentence.
Yeah.
So now to answer your question, like, I don't call it a struggle, but like not knowing what's going to happen, it's just, Jesus, I trust in you. And I'm golden now.
Yeah.
I know that I call him the big man. The big man's got a plan.
Yeah.
And whatever that plan is, I know it's the best one. Our job is to row. His job is to steer the boat.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Have you come across the litany of trust? Oh, I'm going to give you my copy.
Oh, cool.
So, it's awesome because we share that in common of like not a lot of control issues on my end. And I'd say I'm in a good place now for sure. It rears its ugly head every once in a while, like vices do. But it's interesting that this litany was given to me about like 6-9 months ago. Maybe even during Exodus. It might have been during last Exodus. As my confession penance.
Oh, outstanding. No, definitely.
And I was in tears. Like I was just sobbing, like in the back of the church, just like, thank you, right? So it was like this, it was this gentle, like just relinquishing of, you are in control and I'm not. And I need to trust that you have I can't even perceive the greatest and best desires that you have for me. And for some reason in my heart, there was this sliver of always like, you're going to swindle me. You're going to, you don't actually care. You're going to cheat me in some, like all the lies of the devil were there in some fashion. And the litany of trust was just like going, I'm not that.
Right.
I'm not that. I'm not that. I don't know why you think that of me. I'm not that. It's beautiful. Anything else?
I dig it, man. I will say my one quick side note is even to this day, like going to confession, I put a lot of thought into it, and so there's a long line, right? And so then you get closer and closer, and I know exactly what I'm going to say. I know what's on my heart and my mind, and then I'm next up, to walk in the confessional. I know what I'm going to say. I walk in the confessional.
It's totally different.
Oh, I'm totally blank. I have no idea what I'm doing in there. Then I'll kneel down. I'm like, man, is it hot in here? Or is it just me? So, which is purposely why I have this Scott Hahn confessional book that I always take with me because I know I'm probably going to go blank, and I can lean on that while I'm in there. But
I'm a laudate. That app is money. I'm even getting my kids doing it because they have like a kid version, and you just walk in and I'll even take just a picture so I'm not even distracted by the app itself. Right. It's just the picture, walk in, kind of number, boom, out. It's like, to your point, there's so many, but what's funny is even as I'm going through my list of sins, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I need to confess this one. Like all of a sudden in the confessional it's like, oh, that's for sure something that needs to be confessed. It's like, and then the ones you think that the priest is going to like zero in on, he just like, whatever. But then there's this random one that I'll see. He's like, hey, we need to talk about this one. Right. And you're just like, oh, why?
It's the one you sped over.
Yeah, exactly.
And then this, and then this. Hold on, go back.
So Joe, when was the last time you went to confession?
Yeah, right. How long has it been?
30 days.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it. Same thing.
For the
What about you,
listeners,
Manny?
it's about 2 weeks. For the listeners, voting on there'll be a poll on Instagram if we should add that to the rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
When was the last time
What's the
you?
last time you
How long has it been since your last confession?
what about non-Catholics? We need to figure out some way to ask that question to the non-Catholics that we have.
I'll move on because I'm gonna make some bad jokes.
Yeah, it's so bad. Manny, were you gone yesterday? Were you still there, or had you left already when Charles brought up taking a list in the confession when we were talking with Father Clean?
No, I must have not been
I
there.
don't think you were gone. So Charles was talking about how he has a list in his phone, and apparently there was a priest who told him basically he shouldn't do that. And so obviously there's different people and different types of priests. And Father Clean, I thought this was really cool, but he was like, I would never really tell you not to bring a list, but what I will tell you is when you're done, you need to go burn that list. You need to go throw it away. He's like, no, I don't say that to children because I'm not going to tell a kid to go burn.
don't light stuff on fire.
But yeah, he was like, no, I'm not anti-list, but you walking out of the confessional with your list, that's the problem. Basically, that's where I draw the line.
You're well said.
Which I thought was really cool. So I was like, because they're redoing the confessionals, I was like, does this mean there's going to be a shredder in the confessional? We're going to add that to the budget. Shred your list on the way out,
You're
please.
walking out.
No, but I thought that was an awesome visual. The awesome visual of just get rid of it, burn it. If Jesus won't even remember your sins, why should you?
Yeah.
Basically, that's what Father Clean said. So much wisdom in that, man.
Very well said.
It's cool.
What's the digital version of that? Because sometimes I'll write them on my notes.
Delete.
Just delete.
That's,
No.
and the app. What's nice about
Doesn't quite have the same effect,
Laudate
huh?
clears it. There's no way you can recall.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's once you're done and you back out of it, it's gone.
I got to do more
There's no-
diving into that app because I didn't even know that it had an examination of
Dude,
conscience.
That's a great-
They have a married, they have a single version, they have a children's
Really?
version, they have all different types of versions. Yeah,
Wow.
within the app, and so all that's why I'll typically take a screenshot and then to your point, delete the screenshot from my phone.
Yeah.
So that it's not there to again let devil to use it.
Yeah.
But that because I'm also handing my phone off to the kids to help them prepare. Right.
Okay.
And I don't want them to see my sins, and I don't want to see theirs. So it's
Yeah.
then I'm I have the picture. Actually, how do I do that? I'm typically last. I'm either first or I'm last. So by the time they get it, I've already deleted it.
Daddy, what is gluttony?
Yeah.
Don't worry about it, son. Let's go get some donuts. Actually, sorry. That brings up another cool story. Hijacking the podcast here.
It's like Joe's show. I know. I was
my
like,
bad.
guys, really?
Well, this is the beauty of the show. We had the. Did you just shut me off?
No, I lowered you.
Oh, okay. It completely
You got that
lowered
bass
my
in your
headset.
voice.
We had
It's so loud.
we had the confirmation retreat last weekend, and David, what was his last name? Calavita, who used to, I guess, used to be the director of Life Team. But this was kind of cool that he talked about he's like, yeah, so it's we make it a point as a family, whenever we go to confession, we always go out for ice cream or donuts afterwards or something.
Yeah,
He's to celebrate the sacrament, remind yourself of God's goodness, which I thought was pretty cool. I apparently was inadvertently doing that because there's a donut shop right by the cathedral, and so a lot of times even this last time I took my boys, I got them donuts, even though I wasn't partaking. I was like, I'll get them some donuts, but that was a really cool kind of thing to experience or a way to experience the sacrament, the beauty of the sacrament. I thought that was neat. So
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, man.
stop by for ice cream on your way out of confession, guys.
Sounds like a good idea.
All right. Are you an Office fan?
The Office?
Yeah.
Like Jim and all that? I mean, I think it's hilarious. I watched it with Cookie once all the way through, but
Nice.
Okay. So that's where this last question of the
Okay.
not so lightning round questions came from. Joe, why are you the way that you are?
quirky? That's a, I don't know, man. I feel like, you remember that board game Boggle?
Yeah.
There's a little
Yes.
bubble in the middle of the game,
Yeah.
and you push down, and it would be and
Yeah.
all the dice would pop. Why I am the way that I am? I don't know. I think the big man made a good job, and I won't get off on a story here, but on this Exodus 90 thing that we're all, a number of us are going through together right now. You have your anchor. So my anchor and I were talking on the way over here, and we were talking about, or I was talking about some pretty severe bad choices I made once upon a time. And I said, you know what, I'm thankful because, again, going back to the big man's got a plan. And he knew that even me making some of these really bad life choices, that there was good that he could bring out of the life choices. To the point now, it allows me to empathize with people in a way that on some of these topics that I go out on a limb and say 90% of people can't empathize with. So as far as, I think he made me perfect, and he let me make a lot of really bad mistakes to come out better. Is that a good answer?
Yeah.
So I got, man.
Well, I love the quirky because, even today you mentioned Galaxy. Are you a?
I'm a big Star Trek fan.
Thank you. I was like, this guy's got to be a Star Trek fan. I'm gonna find it. I need to read this because I love the quirky. The simple response was great because, as I was reading what you sent me, it made me smile because it's refreshing in the sense of. Let me read it. Well, the way you address me too, I'm like, I don't know if I'm worthy of this title. Living legend.
Yeah.
When you have a moment, can you upload the coordinates to my starship so I know where I'm zipped lining down to? And then the first one was, "What up, legend? Per your request, here are 3 Catholic books." I love it. That's to your point. I think I'm more owning the uniqueness of the way God's made me in my 40s, and I wish that I owned it when I was in my 20s and just kept it going. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. You can't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah, it's we try to be. We try to, I guess, a lot of us can try and. I gotta be a certain way to people in our careers or professionally, and yes, there's a line, but then there's also a function of most people want to see who you are authentically, and you can kind of determine what that line is, by trial and error. But I think a lot of us err way more on way conservative, and it's and then it's real stuffy, and people are kind of oh, is this guy actually this way all the time, or is he cool when he gets a beer in him?
Sure.
I always thought that I would reach this age where I would just think like an adult. Never came, but
here we are.
It hasn't came. No.
Yeah. But I think that's.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever get there.
Well, but I think that's we were talking about this. Jamie and I, was it maybe last week before last, about this idea of the fact that Jesus, twice, 3 times in the Gospels, talks about no, let the children come to me, right? We're supposed to be like little children, to your point about the big man, and then also this relinquishing of I can play all I want that I'm in control, but the reality is I'm not.
Yeah, exactly.
There's only so many I have to participate. I have to make decisions, right? But that's with the understanding that I'm making a decision and trusting that you're going to do the better than what I'm going to do with this decision right now. Yeah. And there's a piece there. I think the problem is we lose sight. To your point, Manny. I gotta have it all figured out. As an adult, I've got to know what I'm doing. It's
sure.
Do you really need to know?
It's actually comforting not to know, and to entrust that all on a higher power.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Anything else?
I'm good on that one, man.
Anything else?
A new question for the lightning round. What do you want to be when you grow up? We should ask. Don't put it in the format we send people, but just the next guest we have on, just hit them with it. What?
This wasn't in the... Yeah.
Well, so Rick, I think I'll kind of take the handoff from you on this one, and then we'll go right back to, I know Eli's got some more questions, but to go back to, say, the year 2000, and me saying, if you asked about my faith, then I would say, God is dead. And I really strongly believe that at that time. To fast forward to this past Friday, And me and Brian Donovan actually had a meeting at the diocese to talk about the diaconate.
Nice.
So
That's awesome.
it's, in terms of like that spectrum and going from, hugely on one end of the spectrum to, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think there's been very clear, I'll even go so far as to say like almost lightning strikes in my life that if I look in the rearview mirror, I can say it's been leading me to a path. And as kind of an aside, so when I talked about you asked about my morning routine, 2024 was the first year that I actually set a personal goal. Not that I did have goals, but like to actually say, I'm going to do X.
Yeah.
And the thing that I wanted to do is I'm severely asthmatic. So when I was growing up, I had like an oxygen tank and all that kind of stuff. But my goal was...
We're all sitting around.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. But my goal was to walk/run in my vest 1,311 miles. And Cookie was like, that is such a random number. What's 1,311? And I said, well, that's the distance equivalent of walking or running 50 marathons in 12 months.
Nice.
So when you walk 1,300 plus miles, you have an awful lot of time to think and reflect and pray. And so when I say that there's those very, I could count them off on my hands on like life or death things that happened in my life that's made me who I am today. And all the way to, me and Donovan going to the diocese to talk about the diaconate program and pointing me towards that direction.
Wow.
So, good question, Rick.
Yeah. No, that was your question. Thanks, man. Awesome.
That's beautiful.
That is.
All right. We're going to take a break. We're going to get this fire stoked up, and then we'll be right back.
Throw another log.
Hey guys, Eli here from Circa Ignem. Hope you're enjoying this week's guest so far. Just want to take a quick second to invite you to join our online community on all your social media platforms. We'll be sharing wholesome, Christ-centered content, and you can always stay up to date on the latest news and episodes. Listen, like, comment, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Thank you.
And we are back. Logs have been thrown on the fire specifically.
Please specify. A fight
Joe?
broke out during the break.
Where were you born, Joe?
I was born in Sacramento, California.
Okay. Do you remember which hospital?
Mercy San Juan.
I love saying those questions because it's like, there's no way you remember.
No, I
told
actually
this.
do. Yeah, I do.
Do you remember being born?
No, I do not. I know that a previous guest said that, and I'm like, that's so weird.
Yeah, what room number?
First floor.
Were the walls painted rose or were they pink? All right. So Sacramento, what do you remember? Like, what are your earliest memories of Sacramento?
Well, so both, my family is all from Fresno, and my parents met at Fresno State, and then right before I was born, they got married, moved to Sacramento, and then that's where I was born. And then I grew up in Auburn, California, and every year I would spend summers with my grandma and grandpa, who actually only live like 3 minutes from your house.
That's awesome.
And I always loved coming to Fresno. So when it was time to go to college, it was real easy for me to decide where I wanted to end up. So, and I lived with my grandparents all through college.
Okay.
Grandpa was my best friend. One of the things that was really special to me, I wouldn't call it closure, but my mom has cancer, and right now she's going through stem cell replacement, and I went and house sat for them for a week down in Arizona, and that's where my grandma was buried. But when my grandma passed away, well, side note, Alzheimer's dementia runs in my family, and I helped take care of grandma, and then right before she died, we took her moved her from a memory care facility here down to one in Arizona where she passed away. And the celebration of life was here in Fresno, but there was never a burial. So one of the things that I wanted to do while I was down there, actually, it was awesome. I was texting Manny, you didn't know this, but I was texting you before I went to spend some time with Grandma. I found her spot in the cemetery, and I didn't really need to like say what I wanted to say type of thing because we had a great relationship, but it was really powerful to be able to spend time, with her.
Yeah.
And be in that spot. So as far as like where I'm from and my family is very small.
Sure.
So I only have one brother, and that's it. No.
Older or younger than you?
Younger.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Awesome. How many years younger than you?
2.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Cool. You guys are tight?
We're great. We're just very different people.
Okay.
Yeah. My brother's awesome. He's like one of the smartest people I know. He and his wife live up in the Bay Area. They don't have children. They've helped raise guide dogs for the blind.
Oh.
Awesome. So yeah, and my sister-in-law has probably one of the coolest jobs ever. She's an illustrator or like a video game artist. So like World of Warcraft characters.
Nice.
For video games. So she'll help create them and model them, and they'll make them in 3D and put them in the games. So
Wow.
That's cool.
So whenever I ask, like, we get together, which is only like once a year or so, like, so what's the latest game? And she'll rattle off,
That's cool.
What's
She's working for like a really well-known firm
she's worked for a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But I think that's pretty talented to be an illustrator that goes into video games.
Yeah.
So your brother's the dog guy and you're the cat guy.
Yes.
Nice. You weren't kidding when you said you guys are opposites.
Yeah. When you're like, we're different people.
Yeah.
What's your, so growing up in Auburn, what's like your earliest, like youngest memory that you recall that like
Youngest memory.
Yeah, something that you're like sticks out in your head that like you go back to or that kind of flashes often.
Huh. You know what? I've never been asked that question. And I guess I would preface by saying I don't live my life looking in the rearview mirror.
Sure.
So I honestly couldn't. I have a wonderful mom and dad. I think one of the things I'm most thankful for is instilling us, both me and my brother, really hard, strong work ethics.
Okay.
And making us self-starters. So when growing up out in Auburn, it was in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it took 20 minutes. Like if you forgot milk at the store, that was a problem.
Yep.
But it taught my brother and I to be like self-sufficient. Mom had some health issues then, and so when it came to like studying, like to learn math, say, like I was my own math teacher, which I don't know if that's good or bad, because by the time I went to college, the professors would say, well, that's right, but you came up with the answer in some really bizarre way.
Yeah.
How'd you do that? And that's what happens when you're your own math teacher, is you just figure it out.
There's systems. And once you figure out the system.
Yeah. So as far as like young memories, nothing that really comes to mind. That like I say, my grandma and grandpa here were really, really special people, and they were instrumental in my formation, I'd say.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So, Auburn, so you moved down here only for college, or
I moved here for college, yeah. So I did a year at Sierra Junior College up in Rockland.
Yeah.
And then I moved in with grandma and grandpa, and I was 17 at that point.
Okay.
So I was an early bloomer in college.
Okay.
I thought I wanted to go to medical school, and so I kind of had that whole map charted out. So back to your question of like, where do I struggle, and like knowing where I'm going to go and thinking like I've got my life planned out. I'm going to get this degree. I'm going to go to that school. I'm going to get this residency. And then, like anything in life, it doesn't turn out like you think it would, right?
Totally.
Fast forward. So I went to Fresno State. My degree is in chemistry, math and history minors, and I had this great idea that I was going to invent plastic engine parts, which is kind of what led me to a research program at Virginia Tech in chemical engineering.
Okay.
And then I found out real quick I might be okay at and sort of talented at something, but it was not my calling. I shared a lab with a couple other doctoral candidates, and it was like a bunker. Like our lab was literally underground. So, and I got to campus early. So I was there before the sun came up, and when I left, the sun had gone down, and it like kind of started to mess with my head. The project that I worked on was actually kind of cool. This is the one you referenced in the very kind intro that you did for me.
You wrote it.
And I would say it's... so I was a very, very small part of this project, but it was a project that the university had with the Navy, specifically the Navy SEALs. And what it was to come up with an underwater crazy glue that SEALs would use to attach mines to the outside of the ship.
Yeah.
And so part of the project was figuring out like oxidation and surface differences on metal underwater or ship holes underwater, and what the shearing force would be to rip the mine off while the ship's underway. So it was cool. Like the work was fun. That was back in 2000.
Okay.
I had and this is going to really date me, but I had a dedicated T1 line in my lab.
Nice.
And that was when Napster was a thing. So I would like set all my research projects like up and go and like hit the go button.
That's so
and
great.
then I would just go and sit and download music for the rest of the day.
That's so awesome.
Which I still have all of those burned CDs.
So it sounds, just already this far into the episode, you've shared a lot of cool stuff, including that last story. Like, how did you see yourself that like doing these things when you were younger? Like when you were a kid, did you envision some of these things?
Not at all. It's I say that the big man's got a plan. During Vietnam, my dad was stationed. He was in the Navy, and he was stationed in Subic Bay in the Philippines.
Okay.
And during his Navy time, he amassed this huge reel-to-reel collection. You guys know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he had a huge reel-to-reel collection. My mom had a huge vinyl collection. So in the mornings, I would get up, I would put on my bathrobe. I had a cartoon dinosaur cravat that I would wear. Totally not nerdy at all. I would get my cat, Fracky, and I would go pull a couple reels, and I'd set them up on the TIAC machine and put on my big giant headphones, and I would just listen to music and study. And we're, like I say, living out in the middle of nowhere. So it's funny how these little things, like, you know.
What kind of music?
Oh, man. I have a 12 terabyte RAID drive just for my music. So I'm a big music person.
Yeah.
I can't sing. So Rick and Gerardo, you guys are awesome. I appreciate your talent because you guys can sing, you can play instruments. I can't do any of those things, and I don't remember the lyrics to any song.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about like artists and history and who was in what band and all that kind of stuff, I'm probably your trivia guy.
Yeah.
Nice.
Trying to think of a trivia question for you.
Oh, hey, I got one for you real quick. This is an easy one. This is a great icebreaker, Creston, that you can spring on other people in meetings. Name the first album to ever go platinum.
Oh, shoot. Probably something by the Beatles.
What you guys got?
The White Album.
I think for some reason I feel like it's gonna be something dumb, like Britney Spears or something.
No, it has. Well, I shouldn't say it has to. I'd argue it's further back than Britney.
Give us a decade.
70s.
Oh, okay, 70s.
70s, or late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah,
So
Rolling-
Beatles is a good guess.
Rolling Stones around that time.
So the intro to this brief story is when they went into the music, or prior to going into the studio to record this track, the members got together and drank a bunch of box wine and ate a bunch of shrooms. And In the Garden of Eden got slurred into Inagata Devita.
Yeah, what's that?
Iron Butterflies, Inagata Devita is the first album to ever go platinum.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Right?
I used to have that on vinyl.
Most people would be like Elvis, it's the Beatles, it's Happy Birthday.
So who was it?
Iron Butterfly is the name of the band.
Wow.
But In the Garden of Eden was slurred through, if you drink a bunch of, terrible box wine.
Sure. And
Get on some
shrooms.
psychedelics, it becomes Inagata Devita.
Inagata Devita.
That's interesting.
Huh. Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
crazy.
I'm also a big music guy.
Nice.
So let's jump back. You jumped up to college. Let's jump back to like.
Well, we can totally do childhood.
Yeah.
But I think what you're looking for in our much better stories for you guys and your intergalactic listeners is if I hit on some of those like lightning strikes that I talked about, because these are some good ones. The first one is, so right out of college, I had no practical work experience. I had a hard work ethic, but no work experience. And I decided that I wasn't going to go for my doctoral program. So who's going to hire somebody with a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry and has no work experience, right? Is it like nobody? I got an interview. So I tried for probably 4 months. I got an interview at the soils analysis company out at Shaw in 99.
Okay.
So I remember it was like a infamous Fresno August day. It was like 118 or something like that. And this is as I'm walking out through the parking lot into the building. It's like this low slung, blacked out window building. And when I went in, it's like most laboratories are, like ice cold.
Yeah.
And it's dead quiet. And this woman comes around the corner, and I knew, so I'm 21 years old at the time, and I knew just like my spidey senses were going off, like something's not right with this situation. So we walked down this hallway and to show me where my workstation is going to be. And on the right-hand side is like all of these kind of like Star Trek machines, like lots of blinking lights, lots of tapes, lots of clacking sounds and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And as we're walking down the hall, on the left-hand side are chemical waste disposal drums, like the blue polyurethane ones, like the size of an oil drum. Sure. And they're stacked two atop. We get to the end, we go into her office, and it was the most bizarre desk situation. She had actually built like a dais, like a small raised platform that her desk sat on, and the chairs in front of the desk that the guests would sit in, like the legs were kind of chopped off. So it created this really weird height dynamic.
Yeah.
And
like a power dynamic.
Huge power dynamic. And I was already weirded out by this woman's behavior. So she's telling me, this is what your start date's going to be. This is where, how much money I'm going to pay you. And all I could think was like, I had a sense of panic. And I even said, I need to call my grandma and grandpa. Because there's something inside of me that was like, you got to leave. That lady is now doing life in prison for murdering her husband and dissolving his body in hydrochloric acid in one of those waste disposal drums that I walked by.
I like her methodology.
So it was one of those like, and again, when you say like the big man, that's what I call him. The big man is watched out for me because that was a case where I was like silent desperation. Like I needed to get a job.
Yeah.
I had no money. I needed to pay my rent, and so the path of least resistance is just work it out, figure it out, right? Mm-hmm. The person, you might sense that evil in someone. Her name's Larissa Schuster. You could look her up. There's like on any true crime series, she's all over YouTube.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's not awesome that she murdered her and dissolved him in.
That was definitely headline news across the nation. Unfortunately, the gentleman who quote took my job, James Fagoni, he's doing life in prison now.
Because he was like an accomplice,
right? So she basically like blackballed him into helping dump his body in there.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so real question here. Mm-hmm. Was it in the bathtub or was it in a 55-gallon drum?
55-gallon drum.
Wow. Okay.
And you said you were fresh out of college?
Oh, yeah. I was like 3 months out of graduation.
So I'm just trying to connect things. So at this point, you're not believing in God, right?
No.
But you're able to discern these things just through grace, I'm guessing.
Or like you've alluded to it, like you have deep like relationships with your grandma and grandpa, and then I'm assuming with your mom and your dad.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So it's like there's also a sense of maybe you don't have the spiritual.
Well, okay. So that's a great way of framing it. I would say though, at that time, I might have been book smart, not street smart.
Okay.
And I figured, I think like many people that age, you know everything, right? You don't lean on anybody else's opinion or their experience or their wisdom. So like, during that period of time in my life, I wasn't even talking to my parents really.
Okay.
And even my grandma and grandpa, I kind of like silently drift in the door, at 2:00 in the morning.
Sure.
And I'd be out of there before they would wake up, totally my bad. Like that.
Right.
They were wonderful, wonderful people.
Yeah.
So in terms of, Manny, your question, I think truly there's been a hand, guiding, in some of these really potentially catastrophic moments in my life.
You could have been, what was the guy's name?
James Fagoni.
James Fagoni. That could have been me.
Yeah, he's in Folsom Prison.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was just looking it up.
But
They call her
Rick's our Jamie tonight.
I was thinking that too.
they call her the acid lady.
Chinchilla prison, what?
Yeah.
James
so you could
Fagoni.
sense the evil off of her.
Oh, in an instant.
That's insane.
When she walked around the corner, I knew something's not right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Saw her picture and I thought the same thing. It's crazy.
It's crazy to think, like, even in that situation, that your guardian angel, right? Did you know anyone, like, so let's actually back up. Were you raised in any sort of faith?
Yes. So
Okay.
mom and dad were, well, can I say kinda? It was definitely Christian. And mom and dad had wonderful intentions to
Sure.
raise us with the right principles.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons that I know one of the reasons that I rebelled and what I thought of God or Jesus is, I think it was kind of a product of the time, and a lot of those ministers, and you could say priests too, coming out of the 60s and 70s and very progressive and liberal. I called him like hippie Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, just be groovy, man. Just be nice to everyone, man. Don't rock the boat. And it was just like sunshine and cartoon characters, and I'm like, I don't. And then I guess in that part of faith is, you don't think.
I think the terminology. No, they've actually created a terminology behind that. It's the meta therapeutic spiritualism. So
That's a mouthful.
It's taking church thought and you summarize it perfectly, but it's like, just be a good person and that's all Jesus wants you to be. And it's like, no, that's not accurate. Right? Like that's taking like psychology and applying it to Christianity, and it's like, no, you need to take Christ and Christianity and Catholicism and apply it to psychology. Does that make sense?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So like it like flips it on its head versus it being in the proper order, right?
And something is mission critical is like the passion.
Yeah.
That was more of like, he totally died, but he came back. Right? And it was like, oh, you just skipped over the whole story. Like, so yes, I had good foundational principles, but
Sure.
like if it was, hey, we're going to church, you don't have to go if you don't want to. It's like, I don't want to go. I want to watch football.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's not a knock on mom and dad. That's all on me.
No, that's like, to your point, it was very prevalent, right? And it is what it is. To your point, like, it's not a.
So there was a seed though.
For sure, I had I had flimsy foundation. How's that?
Sure. But like the reason why I say that is it's like so your guardian angel is there, right? Not that he isn't there for those that aren't, right? That haven't been raised in it, but it, like, I'm trying to track like this, to Manny's point, like, it's cool having this very like lightning moment of like, whoa, like someone was looking out for me in this instance, making sure that I did not, because that, to your point, your whole life would have been a totally different trajectory at that
for
point.
sure. And I think hitting the rewind button over that time, and this is something I definitely don't talk about, but I hope in talking about Christianity and God and Catholicism and all of us finding our own way is like through college. when I was basically like unleashed out of the house, right? To be in the middle of nowhere growing up with, you're all by yourself, and you don't interact with other people. At least, my quote friends, whereas, the 80-year-old neighbor, lived a quarter mile away, and I'd go sit on their porch and talk about, the big one, aka WW2, right? To then being on my own and having, a couple bucks in my pocket. And the first time, I started doing drugs, and I have a very addictive personality, and I'll be, people will be like, dude, you get into things, and I totally acknowledge that. Like if one is good, 10 is better. Right?
Gotcha.
And so through college, I even chalked it up to what I would use my Dr. Will quote fingers and call it better living through chemistry. And then that kind of took on its own persona, I guess. So when you talk about like where the big man has had his hand in things, like that clearly is bad, and a lot of really bad things could have come from it. But there is a hand, and here's a great example. Since we're around the campfire telling stories, there's this Hell's Angels group, and it was 4 guys, and their names were Rick, Dale, Steve, and Brother Keith. They're not alive anymore. But it was I was over at their house one time, and it was the first time I actually thought of shooting drugs. And I still remember Keith he'd been up for almost a week, and I remember he stopped. He had a fifth of Kessler in his hand, and when I asked him about if he would give it to me, and he said, in a moment of clarity, you have everything that we all want. There's a bigger plan here for you, and this is not happening.
Oh, you just gave me chills.
Wow.
And that was it. I was still welcome around there, but it was never, I'm not trying to score or anything like that.
Yeah. And they were very clearly setting a line and just saying,
hard line.
That's not going to happen.
This is not your path.
Yeah.
Wow.
And especially in things like that, how easy it is like, I got money, I'm going to give you money, you give me the thing, right? Like, you're totally getting what you want. But in that moment, it was almost like he snapped out of a stupor. And I got within, a 40-second story, very clear direction. And when you're hanging out with the Hell's Angels, right? It's not, you're not going to say no.
Well, no, those are badass.
Yeah, I strongly disagree with what you're doing. Please give me drugs. Right?
Yeah.
So in those kind of lightning strike signpost moments in your life, I can point at, everybody call him Brother Keith. I can point at Brother Keith, being very direct with me that this is not your path.
Yeah. What's crazy about that too, like you mentioned it in the lightning round, how in the midst of that darkness and like albeit sin going on and occurring, and you like not necessarily participating, but like the near occasion, like being very present, the fact that the Lord goes, nope, right? He uses someone, and it's like, this is not this nope, right? Like he's taking something that's broken and going, nope, I'm going to make sure that this doesn't deviate, the path. This isn't allowed, which is just insane to me. What's crazy to like just kind of theorize too is how many times that's happened in one's life, and yet the person that's on the receiving end is just like persistent. No, you don't know. No,
I want. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was curious is how much did you take that to heart? Like, did it change your life, or is it just one of those things, one of those nights that happened and then you didn't realize it till later down the line?
I didn't quit cold turkey, if that's what you're saying. But I recognized it for what it was in that moment.
That's crazy.
It was a very pivotal moment that I needed a wake up call. I knew there was places that you can go, and I mean, I'm sure you're still today. This is a long, long time ago. But you can go into any liquor store and ask for a glass rose when you check out. And underneath the cash register are glass tubes if you want to smoke.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people don't know that.
In my day, they were oil lamps.
Oil lamps, there we go. So I guess another good story, and then Eli, you can jump in here, but talking about,
dude, this is your episode, man.
talking about
To Manny's point earlier, like I'll bring it, when we feel like okay, we're down this, but it's like we're good.
So we're gonna
sharing.
hit the fast forward button to 2008. And Manny, this goes back to your earlier question about like fast cars and fast living, maybe. I had a Mini Cooper that was all souped up. I mean, it had nitrous. It had all the cool stuff.
Yes.
I went like
Italian job, the whole bit.
Oh, shoot! I ordered it in 2002, and that was right before the Italian Job came out.
Nice.
So and I had like the Fast and the Furious graphics down the side. I had blue neon underglow. I spent a fortune putting a big sound system in it.
Yeah, it's so great.
It was freaking rad. When I would purge nitrous, it would purge over the windshield. So you like blow the big old plume over the windshield. And it was in the shop for a long time getting worked. Because back then, like, it was such a unique car. People didn't know, like, what is this? Is it a BMW or is this its own thing? So there is a gentleman who's still in my life, and a very, very special man. Shout out Triplet, I know you're listening. That I was he and I both worked at the bank together, and for months and months I said, hey, when I get the Cooper out of the shop, I'm going to come pick you up, and you're going to be my very first ride.
Nice.
So it was Halloween morning 2008, and the previous night was the first rain of the season, so you kind of hear where the story's going. I picked up Triplet, the car had a full roll cage. It had seats, it had harnesses that you had to wear. We went driving down Old Friant Road, down on the river bottom where the Hallowell house is at. And we were doing 50 miles an hour, like nothing crazy. Probably a little bit too quick, but we're not being stupid. We went down to the supercharger screaming. I had like some crazy contraption on there where you could like hear all of the vanes in the supercharger cranking away. I had a DVD player in the dash. Like back then, that was like big money. That was like a rap music video. I had subwoofers in the back, and the subwoofers were actual nitrous bottles. But like where we cut the end off of them and made the nitrous bottle into subwoofers. And I had two of them. So I had a nitrous bottle legit, and then I had two bottles just for my sound system. So we go down to the end of the road. Oh, and we were giving high fives. I make a U-turn. We're coming back the other direction. Well, as I was going the first way, I didn't realize there was standing water in the other lane. Oh. And as Triplet and I came swooping around the turn, it's kind of a strong left-hand bank. I had a full suspension on it. I had brought in a body kit from Germany from this company called Hamann. Super cool. It was like 3 in North America. I'm doing the math in my head. Like my car is I don't even think it was an inch off the ground. It was slammed. And I'm trying to figure out, like, I can see the water puddle coming ahead. And I did what you're not supposed to do, and I tapped the brake pedal. We hydroplaned we 180'd, and I took one of those giant, there's the whole row of palm trees down there. Yeah. I took one of those palm trees to my door at 50 miles an hour. I'll have to send you guys the pictures. It's they cut us out with the jaws of life. I woke up, or I would not wake up. I regained consciousness strapped to a board and a neck brace with some guy screaming at me, asking me what year it was. Wow. I passed out. I remember we get to Fresno Trauma, and I'm in a gurney and running down the hall. And it's kind of like in the movies when the person is like looking up at the lights, and the lights on the ceiling are like, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody's, there's 3 people on each side of the gurney screaming out instructions and everything. I walked out of the hospital that day, and I didn't have a single scratch on me. When you see the pictures of the car where my door impacted, the door sill to the shifter is only 6 inches. I'm not 6 inches.
Wow.
What the?
Yeah.
How'd that work?
Well, what's crazy, and I mean, I literally walked out of the hospital. I had a massive concussion, but I shouldn't be here.
Yeah. Which hospital?
It was the one downtown.
Community?
Yeah, community. Yeah. And Triplet took the brunt of it. His head swelled up to the size of a basketball. The sunroof blew out of the car, and it sliced the back of his head open from ear to ear.
Whoa.
He lost his vision for a while. It collapsed one of his lungs. It was bad news. And we're still very close to this day. And he's a man of mercy and integrity, and yeah, he's one of my favorite people on the planet. But in talking about like kind of lightning strike moments, like that was a very pivotal thing. And the next day, Cookie had a dream, and Cookie never dreams. Like, I dream like I'm in space. There's like Roman legions. Like, I got Harry Potter skills. If you ask me what I dream about, it's wild. And Cookie's like, I just go to sleep and I wake up. Like, nothing happens between A and B. Yeah. Well, that night she had a dream and told me about it the next day. And she said in the dream it was like she was riding along in the back of the car. And she said it was like an angel, and its wings just came and wrapped itself and held me from behind, kind of like a bubble, when that impact happened. And I truly think that's what happened, because, again, it is not physically possible for me to have survived that impact. And to the point, like, I know 2 people that saw my Cooper on a flatbed truck going down Friant Avenue, and it was covered in tarp. And you'd see people like doing the sign of the cross, because it's very clear that whoever was in that car died in that car.
Yeah. Wow. What's even like amazing is just the fact that typically in a collision like that, statistically speaking, one person isn't walking away from it. Like, meaning they're dead, right? The fact that you both survived it is crazy amazing.
Well, even something is, you guys know exactly where this road is. There's nobody out there. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Down, there's Vulcan excavation, and the gravel quarry is like a quarter mile away. Yep. Well, somebody was walking across the gravel quarry and heard my supercharger screaming, and actually heard the sound, heard the impact, and just saw this huge kind of plume, not like a mushroom cloud, but just debris. Yeah. Right, you could see it a quarter mile away, the sound of the collision. Jeez. Boom. Yeah. And then that's how I'm thankful for whoever that person was, because that's how someone called the police, the ambulances came.
Yeah, it could have been a long time.
It could have been. Yeah.
At that point, what year was that?
2008.
Yeah. Yeah, that was way before the road is the way it is now. Mm-hmm. Where there's a lot of traffic going both ways. That's crazy.
Yeah, got a plan. I'll do one more quick story, and then I know you got some questions for me. I won part of the lottery.
Wow.
Nice.
So in 2012, I hit 5 out of 6 numbers on the Mega. I played the lottery with my old band since I was 17. I'm not sure you're supposed to buy tickets then at that age, but I hit one more number, and in hindsight, the reason I'm sharing this is I'm glad it didn't happen. One more number was 176 million. And I bet if I hit that one more number, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. I would,
Why? Elaborate on that.
So that's 2012. So at this point, I got my mind screwed on right. I've got me and the big man upstairs. We're on the journey. I wouldn't say we're well into the journey, but going to mass. I don't miss, even though I didn't miss. Cookie and I were our captains at St. Anthony Adoration. We asked for the hour that they needed help with the most, and they're like, okay, we need help with technically Monday morning from 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. And so we did that for a number of years. So my faith is strong. It's definitely, like any learning or maturation process, it's It wasn't what it is, today. But I think I would have fallen into materialism, bigger, badder, more, give me more.
Mm-hmm.
Where now I appreciate, small.
That idol would have drawn you way away from
100%.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fool myself and say it would have been totally fine. I know it wouldn't have been fine.
Yeah, that's to your point. It's amazing that the philosophical line of like know thyself, right? Like if you know yourself, then it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna steer clear from this.
Right. It's like, hey, you're gonna be able to have something, a story to tell from this, and you'll be able to do something kind of cool with what happened. But your life is not going to go down this other pathway.
Yeah,
but you could have.
That's awesome, man.
How many friends do you have that have won part of the lottery?
I've won a scratcher.
not 5 out of the 6. That's for sure. I know that for sure, and not even 6 out of 6. Yeah, that's awesome. What was, if you don't mind me asking, what was the take for the 5 out of the 6?
Before the government took their 90 pounds of flesh?
After take on
the gross is 235,000.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
But it was dumb because here's just the 30-second story is, well, what do you do when you win the lottery? Well, duh, I know you're supposed to fill out the back, sign your name. Like, I got that. I jumped on the webpage that night, and it said that you're supposed to mail it U.S. Postal to a P.O. box in Sacramento. I'm like, that is not happening.
You're like, nope.
Yeah. So you actually, you have to go to a lottery location. They got to interview you. Ask you, there was like 30 questions they have to ask you, and then they told me like, hey, it's going to be like another 2 or 3 months and you'll get your check. Like, okay. Well, it was like 3 weeks later. I thought it was my DMV registration because it has like that state of California seal on the return. And so I just left it on the counter for like 4 days. And then I was
just
like,
a cool six-figure check.
Yeah, and I'm like
$250,000 chilling on the couch.
Yeah, and they're like, I got it. I should probably pay some bills because again, I thought it was my DMV renewal. And then I opened it up like, well, sure enough, here it is. And then I got all conspiratorial because I worked at a bank and I knew that if I go in to make a deposit, it'll be like, wait, what? The state of California is paying you how much?
Red flags everywhere. Yeah.
Or they would I just know everybody at the bank.
Right.
And then I thought, do I go to a different location? Then I'm just going to deposit.
I'm just going to open up a whole new account somewhere else.
Yeah. I'll go hit up Liquor King on Blackstone.
Oh, wow. The fee on that one's going to be pretty big. That's crazy.
All right,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So like I said, I've had a number of these kind of crazy, like life-changing type of moments happen, and it's all pointing towards a direction. I don't know what that direction is, but I know it's pointing towards something.
Well, we don't have this like the detail, but it's sainthood, right? Because like God wants us to become saints, right? He gives us every opportunity to become a saint. Now, what that looks like in detail form, right? Oh,
and also real quick shout out, going back to the books you asked for, is when I went through RCIA in 2003, 2004, I had an amazing RCIA teacher, Martha Danks Ferguson. So Martha, if you're listening, I love you. Who really helped point me in a direction. And when they said you have to pick out your confirmation saint, at the time, again, I'm a convert. I don't know, like, who are the saints? I guess that's like Paul, right? And like a couple other dudes. And so the book that I had sent, Saints for Sinners, was a story about Camillus de Lellis, who I won't share the whole story, but his big thing that he struggled with was addiction. And I read his story and I immediately identified with him. And so Camillus is my confirmation saint.
Nice.
And somebody who's always in my prayer rotation.
That's beautiful.
Awesome.
Saints are awesome.
Yeah.
They're real people. They're not like people with little halos around.
Well, no, and that like I know we've said this ad nauseum on here and just in conversation, but like it's such a disservice to the church. And when I refer to the church, I mean Catholicism specifically, in terms of it's always this reflection that like the saints were these people that just came out of the womb perfect, right? And it's like, no, these were people that battled their whole life with serious vice and finished, right? They were the ones that chose. They are the ones that the church recognizes that we also have the capacity to do exactly what they did by the grace of baptism, right? By the Holy Spirit, by all the sacraments that the church, provides to us, in terms of they just kept getting back up.
Yep.
Right? They just kept getting back up when they didn't do it right. Right? And they and it's not chance and it's not luck that by the end of their life, when they died, they were in a state of grace to the point where when they're asked for intercession by people that came behind them that were in their lives that knew this person lived a crazy different life, a radical life, so we are going to ask for their intercession, and guess what? Miracles happen, right? Because they knew there's something different about this person, not because of them, but because they chose to take on the personhood of Christ seriously, right? And they lived it radically, and maybe not apparently and obviously to everyone around them, but those that were intimate with them knew there's something different about this person.
Well said.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah. And again, what we forget is that we all have the capacity for this. It's a choice. It's an absolute choice. It's, to your point, I don't know where you're taking me, Lord, but I want it. And I want it 100%. And I don't want anything else but what you want.
Facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, Manny, he's getting wise in his old age.
Right. I'm just trying to heresy check him.
Waiting for him to mess up.
There's plenty of that in there, I'm sure. All right, so you've shared some really cool like vignettes. Let's jump into how you and Cookie met. Or is there something that you want to talk about before how you and Cookie met?
No.
Okay.
Or which came first, your conversion or Cookie?
Oh, for sure, Cookie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start with Cookie. That's a great nickname, by the way.
I don't know. I remember exactly a lot. It's funny. There's a number of friends that they'll ask her, like, "Is that your real name?" And we've known him for years. And she's like, "No, my name is Jill." If I were to call her Jill to her face, though, like time would stop because like. I haven't
that would
said
be
that
your code for if there's like something really problematic and you texted her,
oh,
hey
for
Jill,
sure.
Can you help me? She'd be like, oh, something's really wrong.
We need to talk, Jill.
Yeah. Someone stole your phone.
So was that a nickname she grew up with, or did you give her that name?
I gave her that name.
Okay.
Yeah, I gave her that name. So we met at I don't know, did I share that already? A B95 radio at the fairgrounds.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just kind of...
What song was playing? Or who was
DJ Irene Tetris.
From the moment you...
Come on, bro, I'm asking. You might not remember, but, it's worth asking.
that was kind of like on the middle part of like, the creation of house music.
Okay.
That's how I'd say it.
Yep.
So, Fog Machines, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I said DJ Irene.
I actually have a couple of her albums.
Yeah. That was that time.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think I was a little bit before DJ Irene became famous.
Oh.
Yeah. I remember spending some of my student loan money on DJ Irene albums.
Student loans.
Well, you paid it back in those taxes. And
Yes.
in the lottery, so.
But yeah, so we met at the fairgrounds, and it was total fluke. I lived with my grandparents, and at the end of the night, as we were leaving, she's like, "Okay, bye." Like thinking I'm going to ask for her number, but I was in my own weird frame of mind, and I was like, "Okay, cool, have a nice life." And thankfully, one of her friends like ran back over to one of my friends, and I lived with my grandma and grandpa, and I'm like, I'm not giving this girl my grandparents' phone number, and so I just randomly recited off my lab partner Kim's phone number. So thankfully, my friend that I was there with was like, "What?" To Cookie and her friend, he's like, "Dude, why'd you give her Kim's phone number?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." So anyway, that
You're like, I'm nervous, bro.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was the 2000 year 2000. That's when that happened. Mm-hmm.
So it was Cyberfest 2000.
I used to, I don't want to go off down that rabbit trail.
So, real talk here. Y2K hadn't happened.
It just happened.
Y2K had just happened.
Or it just failed to happen.
That's what I'm saying. It's a joke. It's always a joke.
You remember at Best Buy how they had the sticker on the side of the computers that was like, don't forget about your clocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember to that point, we had a whole slew of people out at my parents'. You haven't been out to my parents yet, Joe. We'll get you out there. And it was straight up like people were just like, we don't know what's happening for Y2K, so we're just gonna chill, and if the whole grid goes down, then we're gonna be, we can survive for a number of months out here, and we're good. It's so freaking dumb.
Well, let's see. So so Cookie and I met. We graduated, took two totally separate career paths, and actually ended up sitting next to each other at the bank for that number of years. We got married in 2004 at the Mission in Carmel.
Okay.
Yeah, man, she's awesome.
Yeah. So
She helped straighten me out.
that's what I'm saying. Let's walk through. So let's go back to Rick's question. This is a good one. How did she get the nickname Cookie?
I don't remember. It's gone for so long. I do remember in the very beginning stages, it lasted all about like 3 hours. I called her Muffler Head.
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
And then it kind of like shortened, and I still have every once in a while I'll call her Muffly. But it's like a term of endearment. Yeah, and that's a very that goes back 20-something years for us. Yeah. So I don't know in terms of how I started calling her Cookie. It just I just started referring to that in even professional communication. Let me check with Cookie and I'll get back to you. Yeah.
Okay. So the next question, and for me is you mentioned that if someone had asked you right when you met or right before you met Cookie, where you stood in terms of God, that it would be, oh no, God is dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just straight up quote Nietzsche. What transpired between you and Cookie, between that when you met and marriage, that started to kind of turn your heart towards God?
So about that, that's a great question, and I have a really good answer for that one. So about that time, and Cookie's a cradle Catholic. She's always been very devout. We would go to St. Anthony's, and I was kind of hit and miss. She would never miss. Sometimes I would drop her off, and she would think we were going, and then I would she would open her car door to get out to go to Mass. I'm like, I'm going to Tower Records. I'll be back in an hour.
Gotcha.
And I started to clean up my act a little bit, but the Passion of the Christ movie was absolutely crushing for me. I remember I was bawling in the theater. It was so unbelievably heavy, and things that, again, my experience to the point, if you were to say Jesus is rainbows and skipping and green hillsides and a bunch of buddies going backpacking together. It was that. And so when I actually saw the portrayal of his passion, it was so powerful. And even to this day, every Good Friday, Cookie and I watch that movie, and I still cry every time. It's so in terms of what changed and what was that moment, I would say it was the moment that when that movie came out and we saw it in the theater. And I would also say in 2006, It was the first time we had traveled outside of, or I had traveled outside of the country. We went to Portugal, and she's like, we're going to spend 2 days in Fatima. I'm like, what's Fatima? And she tells me the story, and I still remember like it was yesterday. I think I might have shared this with you our very first time that we talked.
You did, yeah. And I love that you're sharing it, because
you kind of come up when you're going towards where the cathedral, the hill kind of rises up, and not like you're climbing a mountain or anything, but it kind of rises up, and the cathedral sits down in like a bowl almost. And I remember as we were standing at the very top, and I kind of crossed over to start walking down this hill, it felt like I was stepping into in that moment, it felt like I was stepping into the rest of my life as I crossed that kind of boundary. And it was,
that's so powerful.
Yeah, I remember it was a physical feeling for me.
Yeah.
And seeing, a lot of the pilgrims that actually crawl on their knees. It's not something I'd ever been exposed to. And there's there is a lot of things that are extremely deep and powerful, and the faith that people have to show their faith in that crawling.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, where did things get deep and kind of go to the next level? I would say that those were two big instances for me.
Yeah. I think what's cool, and it seems minute, but what I zeroed in on, what you were sharing about, like that transition where you'd be driving with Cookie, and she'd be kind of under the impression that you'd be joining her, going to Mass, and then all of a sudden you'd be like,
I'm out,
right? What's beautiful is that Cookie, there's grace and mercy in the way that she was treating you in that.
She never got mad.
So, you didn't even say that, but, that's the way I read, your body language in your face in that, is that there wasn't, this, aspersion, casting aspersion, or, again, or why, right? She wasn't, placing judgment.
Mm-mm.
She was loving you where you needed to be loved. But then also, but I'm not changing who I am. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah. And so, in that, she was ministering, but then also being, who you needed to be, right? Where you're at, and it's just awesome, man. I think, for me, hearing, right when you said that, it was, this beautiful way of, the ordinary, how we can radically, in the ordinary things that we do, be catechizing and be ministering to those that are right in our circles, in work, in all the circles that we run in. It's
for
awesome.
sure. I mean, I came to my own faith through her sharing her faith, and seeing her act out her faith.
Yeah.
There was never any browbeating, or you should read this, or if you don't do that. That never happened.
Yeah.
No, she's a saint.
That's awesome. Let's take a break. I think that's a good spot to take a break.
Let's throw a log in the fire.
Yeah. Hello, friends. I want to tell you a little bit about our First Fruits movement. What we do first in everything matters. It sets the trajectory of whatever action we take. In Leviticus, God tells Moses to share with the Israelites that they must bring forth the first fruits of their livestock, of their produce, and of their drink. The fulfillment of this is found in Jesus himself. He is the firstborn of the Father. He is the first man to conquer death. He is the first to ascend into heaven. Before Jesus' ministry, he would run to Mary for guidance and counsel. So why would I not do the same? What can you do to participate? Commit to praying the rosary daily, invite other men and women to join you, and share the movement with your friends on social media and other communication platforms. What can you do to support us here at Circa Ignem and First Fruits? First, pray for us and our mission daily, and second, buy our hats and future merch at circaignem.com. That's CircaIgnem.com. Thank you. So Joe, we're back. Let's finish off with Fatima.
So, faith is of course, is really personal, but being in Fatima was the first time saying the rosary with other people. And so when you imagine there's hundreds of people that are together, you know, in front of the cathedral, the candles, and you realize it's not, you know, it's not about you. It's not even about, you know, that person or that person. It's about all of us and the big man upstairs. Like that was a really powerful moment, to be there and to realize the humility of that. And to treasure those prayers and to know that Our Lady was actually there, was really, really special. And I'm thankful that, you know, if at that point in my life and not know any of these things, like I would never have ended up there if Cookie didn't schedule that at all. And one of the other things that we did on our once a year we'd always like go to Europe, and our vacations were always about food, wine, and churches. And it was great because I was never, you know, I didn't know anything about like relics. And so there's a number of places or churches that we go to where, you know, the precious blood will liquefy. And you know, I might have heard a story, right, or saw something on YouTube around, you know, about this general topic. It hits a whole lot harder though when you're actually standing there and you're seeing it. You realize how powerful God is, and He never left. Right, like at least for me, it was like, well, God, you know, is in my own faith journey. Then there became a point. It's like God created the universe. Or what do they call it, the clockmaker philosophy, and then bounced, right? And then He came, He died, He left. But no, He never left. And it was really special to go and visit all of these sites where, you know, become such a huge fan of the saints because they're real people in a real time with the exact same struggles and making different life choices. And focused on one thing, and being able to go and spend time at each of these places was really formative in my own faith journey. And one of the other places, like I think I mentioned Shane Smith, the comedian, but I didn't even realize we were going to this church that was made of bones. And at this time, like, you know, going back to the whole music conversation, like, you know, I'm not like, I don't know everything about heavy metal, but, you know, especially through that period of time in my life, I was a huge fan. And I remember walking into this church made of bones and all of these skulls, and I'm like, man, the Catholic Church has everything. These guys are metal, like metal. And so it's so neat, the tradition and the gifts that the church has. Like anything you want, if you want some, you know, a saint that's funny, or you want a church that was built, you know, with this type of an altar, like there's really something powerful for everybody.
It's shout out to my buddy Noah. He's really, so to your point, like he's really searching. To your mention of your friend, that we run in, you know, similar circles, meaning he and I. My buddy Noah and my buddy Matt, shout out to Matt, we played metal and like hardcore and emo music, you know, right? Like Manny knows what I'm talking about, early 2000s in Fresno. And it's funny, like part of, like he and I were joking via text and in conversation around a fire very recently, of like, he's like, it's so funny how like these things, he's recognizing like that, like the faith is meant, it's universal. Right, so there's these elements of him where he's like, I thought it was this, but he's like, he's talking about relics, or he's talking about these churches, and he's talking about these things that it's like, so metal would sing about these things in a almost tongue-in-cheek way, or as like this, like, oh, this is what it, you know, what this means. But he's like, but the church has always been this way. Right, like from the beginning, it's like there's this element of like just gravitas, and like, so he's like, that just makes it more attractive, right? Because he's like, it's there's almost a homeness to it for him, of like that resonates with me. And so if that means that's what I'm attracted to, and it's funny, part of the conversation was, is that bad? And I was like, no, like Frad talks about this on his, you know, podcast, where like, it's like,
talking to, I forget which bishop, but is it bad for me to be attracted to the, Franciscan friars of the renewal because they're hardcore and they wear these,
The sandals.
yeah, sandals and like super rough wool like cloaks? And the bishop's like, if that's what it takes to get you attracted, he's like, once you're committed, now it's you're just going deeper and upward and inward. But it takes, like all of us with wives, we're attracted to the beauty and the body and all that, but then when you actually start realizing who the person is, you're like, oh, that was nice, but this is even better. Right? Like, so he's like, it's not bad that you're attracted. And so I was sharing that story with him. I was like, it's not bad that you're attracted to that. That's beautiful. It just means that you're also attracted to the depth with which is behind that. You know? So
You should have a podcast.
Been telling them.
Put it on the to-do list.
all right. So relics. So faith. So Fatima. We come back from Fatima.
And a different trip, Cookie and I went to Lourdes.
Okay.
And that was powerful in a much different way. But I think what was so important to me was to see the faith of the public. So, and the reason I put it that way is when you go to Fatima, I would say it's pilgrims are going, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's that I could see. I mean, we were there for 2 days. Is upright. They're walking. They're enjoying themselves. They're praying. They're very spiritual about it. Like it's a process, and you can tell that a lot of time and effort has gone into these people getting there to go through the process. Where in Lourdes, it felt like you're in God's waiting room. The amount of gurneys and wheelchairs and people on crutches and walkers and like these people aren't. This is the opposite end of the spectrum for my Fatima experience, and not that it was worse is not the right word. It's just so different, but it was amazing to see the faith these people have to make that effort to get there. So they have like people can volunteer at Lourdes to like help push people around.
Oh.
Because
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's people that will make like their whole vacations that you stay in like the dormitory, and for people that get there, but they're in a wheelchair, but they can't get from their room to the shrine or to the cathedral. They have volunteers that you get like a little shirt on, and you're assigned to that person for the day to get them around. It's like, do you speak French? Do you speak Italian, English, whatever it is? And then they put you in a group. Like I would totally, at this point in my life, I'd love to do something like that. That'd be awesome. Meet some cool people.
Yeah.
My mom just got back from Lourdes a few weeks ago, and it's the off season right now because it gets to like 33 degrees out there. So there's no pilgrims, no tourists or nothing. And she went and she got the whole grotto to it was like her and maybe 2 other people there.
That's amazing.
It was a power. The first experience you said about Fatima reminded me of her experience at Lourdes. The way
That's
she felt the presence. Yeah, definitely.
Did you get to put her hands on the rock?
Yeah, and she brought home some water and everything. So waiting for a good time to use it. I hope I don't have to.
That's so awesome.
That's awesome. Well, and it's special that the Blessed Mother has appeared at these places, and that we can all go and spend time there, and there's still presence.
Yeah,
like a magic order.
Well, and the miracles are still happening. To your point, Joe, like that we forget that people in Fatima and Lourdes are showing up with this faith. Right, I was reminded of The Chosen. There's that moment with
such a great show, by the way.
Gosh, so there's the blind woman, and then who's her friend again?
Oh, her friend that she's with, the guy.
Yes,
that has the crutch.
Yes,
and Jesus like touched him, and then he walks off and realizes he got healed.
Yes.
You just talked about this, I think, last episode.
I did, but like what you were saying about both Fatima and Lourdes, and many, like you alluded to it in terms of like there's like these like seasonality, but there's also this element of that like we're so removed, at least as Americans, right, from like this reality of that the church is that, right, and arguably America really struggles with the spiritual leprosy, with the spiritual like poverty, right? But that, like going to Lourdes and Fatima, you see physical imparity. You see to a whole like piles and piles of wheelchairs and crutches and things of people that are healed that are throwing these things into piles, proof that like miraculous healing has occurred. It just continues to testify to that the church is meant to be a hospital. Right, like, and how much, like, as Americans, we really need to be pumping this back into the culture of like, no, I go to church because I'm a wretch. I go because I'm vile, and I need Him to heal me constantly. I don't go because I'm righteous. Right? There's this, like, to your point about like changing and kind of like adjusting people's viewpoint on who we are as like churchgoers and attenders is, no, I don't go because I'm a righteous man. I go because I need healing. And because that is the hospital. That's the only hospital that's going to fix what needs to happen in my heart. Right. Everything else is just patchwork, Band-Aid, BS, quite honestly, bullshit. Right? Like that is trying to mask what really actually needs to happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and as a quick aside to our faith conversation, I'm so proud of you guys for having this podcast, because I think what the faith needs more of is strong men of character that hang out and spend time with each other and have these conversations. And why, it's one of the many reasons I'm so glad that I found the group at Our Lady of Perpetual Help, because before, I was practicing and very, I'd say, devout in my own way with Cookie, but just by myself. It's not something I had an opportunity to talk about or spend time with. So I really appreciate you guys and having something like this.
Praise God.
Man. Thanks for jumping in as much as you have.
Yeah, I'm like Macho Man.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So Lourdes. Anything between Lourdes and present, that lightning moments. I like your comment about like lightning moments. Any lightning moments between Lourdes and now?
Well, I guess one of the things, going back to our Friday meeting for me and Brian Donovan at the diocese is, when a word that I've really struggled with is when you hear people talk about discernment. Like, what does that mean? It's just like you think you want to do something, right? And then, but you want to slap. And I'm not throwing rocks. I'm just saying this is my own. What previously was my own take on it is you're going to throw a label on something and like, oh, I think I should do this because I thought about it for long enough. But in terms of like lightning strike things in the last couple of years, I've had 4 separate instances of kind of random people that I don't know. Like, I legit don't know these people that have come up to me at separate times and said, hey, Joe, have you ever thought about becoming a deacon? Or you'd make a really good deacon. And, in each of those, in the first 3 times, I was like, that thought has literally never crossed my mind. I've never thought about it. I don't think I would ever thought about it. And the 4th time it happened, I was like, I think somebody's trying to tell me something. Because the 4th time is definitely not a coincidence. And so, I've thought a lot about it. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying it's,
But that's discernment, Joe.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I say now where my understanding is, and again, going back to being thankful for the group is, 6 months ago, I got onto Google and I Googled every portion of like Catholic formation, seminary, Fresno Seminary, Central California Seminary, Central California Men's Catholic, every combination you could possibly think of. And after an hour, I just was like, okay, I give up. It's not a thing, and that's okay if it's not a thing. I did my part, I felt, and like I at least looked for it. And it wasn't until 2 months ago when Toby showed up to the meeting and he had his Knights of Columbus name tag on. And all I thought when I walked in there was like, oh, cool, I'll learn what Knights of Columbus is. You know, all I figured is they sold fireworks and put on fish fries.
And insurance.
Right? But I was like, that's cool. I'm totally open-minded.
Joe with the freaking sidewinder.
Shout out Knights of Columbus.
Yeah, serious.
And I would like to know more what they do, but I think the funny part is
They're a beautiful organization.
Oh yeah, right. And Toby and I are supposed to talk about this, but there's I'd say 30 people that were in the room that night, and of the 30 people, Toby walks up to the front and he says, as they introduce, I think Rick, you might have introduced him as the guest speaker, and Toby was like, well, I'm here to talk about vocations. And of the 30 people, 28 people in the room like leaned back in their chairs, like, you know, mentally I could read it, and I'm not throwing rocks. This is just life. I'm married, I have kids, I'm engaged, you know, I'm
in my vocation.
I'm in my vocation, yeah, which I totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it was me and one other guy both leaned forward at the exact same time. He was sitting like 2 seats down from me. And it was like, the thought in my head was, tell me more. Because again, I had just done this whole Google everything I could think of.
Sure.
So I went up and I introduced myself to Toby afterwards to just kind of ask more about it. And just in that period of time, I've already been working on, like, there's some, I didn't even know about this 60 days ago, but Echoes of Faith, to get a catechism.
Wait, say that again, the what?
Echoes of Faith. I guess is a program that the church uses to teach people how to become catechists.
Okay.
And so part of the pre-work for this program is to get this certificate.
Interesting.
So in terms of like lightning strikes, I don't, you know, I might have deviated just a little bit, but the lightning strike was these individuals randomly coming up and kind of very briefly just hitting on this point.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a long conversation.
No.
But it was enough that, you know, it kind of planted a seed in my head.
I'm going to throw a super rando, deep music cut here.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard Matt Maher's song Echoes?
No.
Okay, listen to it.
Okay.
That'll probably resonate with what you're going through right now.
You drop it in the group chat.
Oh, yeah, I will.
Well, and I guess
There's an actual song called Echoes? I thought that was just the album.
It's the intro, it's the introit, and it's the outro. And if you catch it,
Yeah.
it's one song, but he split it
Into, yeah.
dude. It's actually that intro and that like exit on the album. The album's called Echoes. Really resonated with me. I can't tell you the other songs on that album, but yeah, it's one of those like songs where there's not a ton of lyrics, but like what he's saying, all of a sudden you're like, oh, and it's that element of like passing on the faith. That's what he's like, really, like the whole like thematic elements of the song is like this, at least the way I interpreted it was like he's buying into what you're talking about and sharing that.
Yeah, definitely drop it in the chat.
Go.
Put it in the show notes.
For sure.
We can't let the show finish without talking about his sweater collection, though.
Oh man, see, I do it just for you, Manny. My wife is even like, "Why do you
said we were finishing the show?"
I'm just saying we can't finish it without it.
What he's referring to is
I'm not saying it's over. I'm saying we can't.
I have
Gerardo, do you have anything to add?
What about this made it sound like we were hitting the go home, man?
No, that's not at all. I'm sorry.
You know what's so to your point about discernment. We're gonna jump back there. I'm just gonna ignore Manny over here. We
Love
will
you,
get
Manny.
to your sweater selection or collection. All right, I'm not gonna ignore that part. I agree with you on discernment. I think that so 2 points here. It's your episode here, so I don't want to totally overtake it. It's funny our natural like kind of like, oh, someone's saying it's also I think as Catholics we need to retake and own this element of truly being in conversation with God. And I know in my own life, up until even a couple years ago, there was always this like that seems weird, and it could fall in the charismatic element, right? Like of discussion in the church of when we say, oh, well, God said this to me, right, in prayer. We need to discern that. We need to make sure that we're not like jumping the gun and saying, hey, Rick, the Lord said that you should do this. That's weird. Okay, that's not like, okay, not our place. But guess what? The Lord does have conversation with us if we allow him to, and we create the space, right, for that like quiet and that silence for him to really speak. We know this through experience with Exodus. And that takes discernment. And then that jumps into the discernment conversation of like, we should be discerning people. We are a discerning people. If our heritage is the Jews, they were a discerning people, right? If our fulfillment in that is Christianity, Christ, then it means that we are a discerning people. Christ himself was a discerning person, right? Like in his humanity, he was discerning the people that he was choosing to be his apostles, even though the Father had already determined who those were before all of eternity began, right? Like Christ in his humanity had to discern and understand, Father, who are you calling to be my 12, right? I was, so my buddy Travis that I mentioned, last point, and then we're going to jump back into where you want to take this, Joe. I truly believe that we're very much, Pope Benedict talked about the new springtime of the church in his early part of his papacy. And what he talks about in that new springtime is that it's a remnant. It's a very small church in terms of when we talk about numbers. But when you look at the early church, specifically in the New Testament, there are a crap ton of deacons. Okay, so that this is an encouragement to you of, I was encouraging Travis, like we're really looking at a time when men will step back into, when women will not be, and I don't mean this as a disparagement to women, but women have stepped into a vacuum that really they just needed to step into for the last, call it 30, 40, 50 years, because men were pieces of shit, to be honest with you.
I don't disagree with that.
And we weren't owning our role as leaders in the church. And this new springtime, we're seeing like what you pointed to around this fire. We're seeing men. We're not perfect. We're not great at it. We're learning how to do this again, but we're stepping back into this role of what it means to be a leader, and that's where the diaconate, right? Like that to me, the best analogy, and Travis pointed to this. I don't know who his buddy was, but deacons are like the PA to a doctor.
That's
right?
yeah, I like that.
Right, like so the priest is the doctor, okay? Because persona Christi, they're Christ. They're meant to heal and do all the sacraments. The deacon is supposed to be this physician assistant that steps into these areas where the priest needs support. The priest needs absolutely necessary to remove himself and be one with the Father, one with Christ in prayer, so that he can discern and look forward to where his, like, Father Michael is doing a beautiful job. Father Kling is learning under Father Michael and already has good intentions and already has experience and wisdom just by life in terms of where are we taking this community, right? Because the problem is we've been in this thing of just damage control in the church, of priests just responding and reacting to what the church needs versus responding and saying, no, I'm going to point you in the direction that you need to go as a community, and then also be one with the Father to know as we get there where we're going next. Basically being Moses and Aaron to the people.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay.
Good job, man.
So I encourage you to continue to discern the diaconate. Yeah. I know it's not for me.
Well, it's kind of funny too. Two things is when you walk 1,300 and something miles, and I still walk every day. I've thought a lot about like moving forward in my life, like when not having aunts, uncles, cousins, none of that, and mom's got cancer, dad has heart issues, and say 15 years or whatever it's going to be, when it's just me and Cookie by ourselves, like and not being blessed with children, which we're totally at peace with. That's not a thing. Well, maybe that was all part of the process, and being available to with time. And I have lots of thoughts on this, but just this one of time of service that I can give to the church. And it is a funny aside for, when Cookie and I don't really talk about mortality too often, but every once in a while, somebody will be like, Joe, what are you going to do if something happens to Cookie? And my canned response would be, I'll sell everything and I'm going to a monastery.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've told everyone around this fire, other than you, and you'll hear it now, I've had this question posed to me maybe 3 or 4 times. If Jamie dies, that's it.
Oh, for sure.
I will be faithful to my kids, make sure that they're set and they're done. But to your point, it's like, there's no desire.
Nope.
One best friend and that's it.
I'm on that same page.
Yeah, like
same
it's like,
page.
we're good, Finish. Sorry, I didn't mean to interject.
Oh, no. So it's that, being open-hearted, open-minded, not thinking about, me, I want to do this, or I need to do that. It's, again, going back to my earlier comment, I was, just one foot in front of the other, and we need to row, he'll steer the boat. So taking the gifts that he's given me, whether it's in again, in walking, it's like, well, I've literally talked to several thousand people in my life, and people from all walks of life, and in some crazy situations, like we talked about the acid lady. There was a guy that called me at the bank. I used to work 7 days. I worked a crazy schedule. You could call me at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and I'd be there. That was the schedule that I had.
Yeah.
And I remember, a guy called me late at night from underneath his bed, barricaded in his house, and thinking that I was I was coming over to kill him. I didn't even know who this person was. So I was able to talk him off the ledge. This is like 15 years ago. But I think as I look at all of these different interactions and people that in situations that have been put in front of me and how I've dealt with them, it's like it's a preparation and being able to deal with or empathize with people and meet them where they're at in that moment. And if I hadn't, been able to interact with that number of people and have those experiences, and not that I'm prepared today, but it could be part of a purpose. And I don't know. I'm open to exploring what that might look like.
But I think that, like your comment about like preparedness specifically, it's not about being prepared. Like being to your point, like being a parent. I tell this to guys that like are new into this, like that are coming on board with like a kid on the way. It's like it doesn't matter how many books you read, dude. It's a lived experience.
Yep.
And you can be as prepared as you can, but the reality is like you got to just live it. And to your point about the diaconate, it's the same thing. It's like the church is only going to get you so prepared, and then it's like, okay, right? And if you're called, and every priest will tell you this, Father Kling talked about it a couple weeks ago. It's like, I don't know how the hell I ended up here, but I'm here. And I have some of the gifts and I don't have some others, and guess what? The Lord's going to fill in the gaps where they need to be filled, and then he's going to really fan the ones that are really great that he's already given me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Preach.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, what you got, Manny?
What's that?
I said,
Sweater collection.
Sweater collection. I
No
do it.
segue. Just sweater collection.
I do it just for you. I'll be standing in front of the closet, just staring, and Cookie's like, "What are you doing?" I'm trying to figure out which one Manny hasn't seen yet.
That's awesome.
Just so the listeners get a little context, we see each other every week right now during Exodus 90 at our weekly meetings, and every week Joe comes in with a different sweater, and they're all some sort of religious art or symbolism or something, and they're all really awesome.
Each one more baller than the last.
Yeah. Legends.
Yeah. Joe is wearing a sweater depicting our Lord being brought down from the cross. Is that what this?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Caravaggio.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I think it goes to in sharing faith, and a lot of people. I'll use my myself as an example, like wearing a shirt that just says Jesus on it in public. I think a lot of people, even devoutly religious people, that would be an uncomfortable thing for them. But there's there is a lot of power in sharing your faith, and you don't have to talk about it, but you can be about it. So a lot of the my hoodie collection is what Manny's referring to. Is I
sweater.
Yeah, sweater makes it sound like Bill Cosby.
No, don't want to do that.
It's definitely
Mr.
not
Rogers?
that.
No, they're not Mr. Rogers sweaters.
No.
They're very Kanye-esque.
Yeah.
You should see his cardigans.
And it's, I think we're, clearly in a different and a new age of the church, but even like Charles and I were talking about like our respective tattoo work. And I don't do it, my artwork. And as we're having this conversation, like this leg is all wrapped in plastic.
Nice.
I'm 16 hours deep on this one, but it's meant to share faith and start and initiate conversations where I can guarantee you there would never have been a conversation.
Okay.
So, Rick, and one of my many hobbies is I'm a big graffiti fan, and not tagging. Like that's vandalism.
Oh my good. I'm kidding, Joe.
delete the episode.
But like legit artwork. And so I actually go downtown Fresno like every 3 weeks.
Nice.
Every 3 months. I'm going to rephrase that. And I know where all of kind of the hot spots on wall changes and artists.
Okay.
And then I'll take pictures and I'll post it to my Instagram.
Nice.
So my tattoo work is all done in a certain graffiti style. And one of them, and we have graffiti at our house, but one of my pieces on my other leg in Latin says Ora pro nobis, so like pray for us.
Yeah.
And whenever people will see, that leg kind of peeking out, they'll be like, dude, that is crazy artwork. Like, what does that say? And I'll say, well, bonus if you speak Latin, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
But then when they'll say, well, why did you pick that? And so this is a question, for the group here is, if you were to go to heaven only for a moment and you could ask for one thing and you had to immediately come back, what would that one thing be?
Perfect.
Facts, man. Yeah.
Actually, mine might be, how do you get in this place?
No, mine, so to your point, this is going to probably shock everyone else here. I was chatting with Jamie. I can't believe I'm saying this live on a podcast. But I actually have this part of my arm drawn out right here. And the basis of it right now, so it's a tattoo, is Nunc Chepi.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty badass in terms of the roots.
Is it done or is it drawn?
It's drawn.
Okay.
I haven't done it yet. That's the problem. Is this? So we'll talk offline about like actually pulling the trigger. But I'm like really serious about it because that line for what, guys, probably the last 3 years has been just like it's just okay. Begin again. Just begin again. To what, like I mentioned about saints, it's like they just have this mentality of, okay, I messed up. Get back up, begin again. Whatever, like that's to your point about looking back. I think that's a big problem. Like the whole Catholic guilt thing that we joke about is a true reality in the church, and we need to get rid of that, right? Like that's the devil in terms of like using the accusation, right, and like the lie of like, oh, you're a POS and you don't really actually want to be like Christ and he doesn't actually love you. And it's like, no, that's the devil, right? Like Christ isn't the accuser. He's the one that's like, no, I desire you. I want you. Even when you failed miserably, I want you. Please get up, right? And so Nunc Chepi for me it's been like huge.
Well, that's the thing about that kind of artwork is it's for you, but it's really for other people,
right? And so to your point, like that's like what I struggle with is like, okay, how do I actually explain this to my kids or like to the community? But like the way you've just pointed out, like it's also a ministry. Like you can use it as a like conversation piece of like, no, this isn't just random doodling. Like this has meaning to me, and yeah, maybe it gets weird and old, but I'm going to look at it every time, and it's going to be a reminder of, am I doing this or am I not doing this? And then also in conversation, it's like, oh, this is what this means. What does that mean to you?
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Going back to the graffiti thing, I saw one today on the 99, the freeway, on the way back into town. Maybe you can explain it to me, because it didn't make sense to me, but there's a sign on the 99 South that says Jesus is Lord. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's been there for a long time. Probably somewhere around Fowler, Selma, somewhere around there.
I know exactly which one. I think, I know which. I'm pretty darn sure.
I'm so stuck on the fact that you saw graffiti on the 99 because I've never heard of that. That never happens.
No. So, what's it's a
Whoa!
Are you sure it was the 99?
Yes.
Oh, no. It was the high speed. It was the high speed train. All those concrete monoliths.
Well, the billboard says Jesus is Lord. It's been there for a long time, but someone did a graffiti piece under that said "next to Christ," and I don't know if it just didn't make sense to me, or is
That
there?
doesn't make sense.
Okay, good. It was like that is.
Wait, what did you say, Joe?
That doesn't make sense.
Like, as soon as you said it, I was like, what?
Yeah, that's what I drove off thinking. I was like, huh? But I was like, I mean, maybe there's something
Was it
in the
artistic?
culture. What's that?
Was it artistic?
Yeah, it looked like a nice piece. I should have took a picture of it, but at the same time, I was confused.
Come on, bro, you're bestie with the hoodies.
Right?
You are hip hop.
They call me the hip.
No, they don't.
Nah,
Gerardo's first comment. No, they don't.
I'm glad he doesn't have a mic.
All night. He's just been chilling, and all of a sudden, no, they don't.
Well, not me personally, but a buddy of mine.
No, it was gonna be a reference to the what are they called? The British guys? He's all hip hopopotamus. My rhymes are bottomless. And he just Flight of the Concord. Those guys.
I'll have whatever you're having.
Seriously, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Gerardo, in case you need like a battle rapper to jump in, you got Manny Fresh.
With the gator boots.
Very nothing fresh about it. Very good, Manny. Very good.
Just go back to doing the sound.
All right. So, diaconate. Anything else? This is typically like in the episode where it's like, what's coming up for you? So you mentioned diaconate. Is there anything else?
Like I say, I don't know that that's what it is, but it all starts with, like I was telling
For sure.
Brian on Friday, as I said, and how proud I am of him for, number one, making the phone call. I mean, that's kind of hard, right? Like, you got the phone number, but then you actually have to physically call, tell them what you want, set the appointment, show up to the appointment, have the appointment. Hopefully that goes well, and then kind of like what the next steps might be. So, I don't know, man. I'm just taking steps forward. I will say, like, though, you know, if I zoom out on my faith journey, it's exciting. I love being in church, man. I love being in front of the Blessed Sacrament. I love spending time just kneeling and staring at the crucifix. And I'm there multiple times a week, and it's so neat for me and how special and reverent that time is compared to dropping Cookie off in the parking lot and heading to Tower Records because I didn't want to be there.
Damn. Yeah.
So in terms of what's next, I don't know, man, but whatever it is, I'm excited about that. Yeah. And definitely, you know, sharing faith in each of our own ways doesn't mean, a couple friends were like, well, you know, Joe, you never talk about reading the Bible. I'm like, I do read the Bible. I read the Bible every day. But I think, you know, you can judge where I'm at in my life by, you know, my actions and what you see me doing. And whether that's through, you know, the clothes that I wear or the music I'm listening to or the content of our conversation, or making a shout out to the big man upstairs. Everybody's got their own journey, and I'm excited that, you know, the five of us get to do this thing together.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Oh, shoot. my on like Instagram and all that.
Just in general.
Here in Fresno, hanging out with you guys, man.
You can defer to
You
Eli
you almost went to where everyone else has. Just call Eli and I'm like, no, I don't need that in my life.
No, I'd say friends. I don't say this about myself. Friends say that I'm very prolific with content. Yeah, I have an Instagram and all that kind of stuff. But call Eli. He knows where to find me.
Right. I was gonna say, if you don't want to list all the Instagram and Twitter handles and stuff, just say your social security number. We'll be able to find you.
The security code on the back of my MasterCard is.
Oh man.
Well, you guys are awesome, man. This has been a real highlight. I've been looking forward to this, Rick, ever since you asked me, if I'd be willing to do it. And it's like I said, it's really special to have other, strong men of character and faith that you can share these very special moments. And one of the words that kind of ruffle my feathers against is when people are like, let's get vulnerable. Like, I'm not doing that. But I think it's really neat how, when you go to with the men's group at church and you have the small groups and you actually talk about these really important parts of our respective faith journey and to be very, very open about it. I think that's really special. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
One day I'm going to be as cool as you are.
Won't be long.
A man can dream.
Yeah, won't be long. Yeah.
No, anything?
I'm just still blushing that he called me a gem to the world.
And I think that my exact phrase is intergalactic treasure is what you are.
There you go. I like that one.
Intergalactic treasure, not just Earth. That's what that means.
I like it.
So we're clear.
Well, I guess the last thing that one of my favorite things I learned about Manny is I asked him what his morning routine was like. He's like, dude, very first thing I wake up, I give myself a high five because it's good to be the king. When I get out of bed, I fire off a couple of karate kicks on the way to the shower, kind of get my day going. And the guy's a legend.
I wish that was my morning. I'm gonna integrate the high five for sure. I don't know about the high kicks.
It was and when you were walking down the hallway, you passed the mirror and stopped, and I remember you made eye contact with yourself and said, "That's a good looking mirror."
That I do.
That for sure happens.
That I do.
Hey, good looking.
You got to the truth there.
Yeah.
You do. That's what.
The exact.
What you really do in the morning.
The exact. It's not the words, but it's the exact noises.
We should cut this thing off. Yeah.
Rick, you got me.
I mean, I already kind of said it, but I guess really, I would just thank you for diving in, to St. Raphael's, to Exodus, to this. It's. I've kind of shared with some of the guys, and even in the small group, you might have been in a couple of them, but when it came time to kind of start the League of St. Raphael, I was very much felt unworthy, and I was just like, "Are you sure, Lord? Because I'm not equipped or worthy enough to do this." But little by little, every now and then, God just keeps throwing these reminders at me of this is why you're doing this, and when I see guys like you that join and they're just all in, and I hear just some of the testimony or even just some of the fruit in your life that it's bore, that's a reminder of just okay, that's why this is all happening, and it's when you just get the hell out of the way and just let God do what he's supposed to do, and get out of my own way by all the excuses and reasons that I had to say no, and I just decided to just say yes and trust the Lord, and it's been pretty special to see. So
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I know, you thanking me is that's a two-way street. I to me sincerely have gratitude for every guy like you who's joined our league and has just jumped in completely. So thank you for that.
Brothers don't shake hands. Brothers got a hug.
Are we gonna let Hedda get on the mic at the end or no? Or Gerardo, sorry.
Gerardo, what do you got?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very similar to what Rick said. I just think it's very, like, Joe, you hit us with these words all the time, like legend and king and stuff, but you're just very inspiring, dude. And like what Rick said, just jumping right in with all this stuff and just immediately just fitting in and yeah, just really being a huge inspiration. I mean, I'm Rick's twin brother, if you can't tell by our voices, but I've heard plenty of him complaining about things that go wrong with the group, or just things that, like, man, I wish this was better. I wish, people were more, like, active or whatnot. But, and I think I know he's reminded by it, and it's something that I'm definitely, like, very proud to see just out of the group that he has started and kept going. It's like people like you, people like Charles come to mind that have just, like, taking the bull by the horns with this, and really it's just awesome having, like, new blood within even just like our group of men that have known each other for years. It feels like you're right there with us. So yeah, I'm very, like, dude, you inspire me to grow my faith and just be better, because I just see that in you, dude, and it's very real. Like, and you wear it on your sleeve, man. Like, I mean, literally, your hoodies and just your attitude. Like, yeah, man. We all have off days. We all have days we're not really feeling it, but, like, I don't think you do. You're just always, like, just ready to go and show up and just, like, and light everyone else up. Give us that kick in the butt to keep going. So thank you, man, and praise God for you.
Yeah. Final words, Joe? Anything you want to leave listener with? The intergalactic listeners that we have?
It all starts with taking a step, man, and realizing you are not number one. Big man's number one.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, let's close out in prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Lord, we thank you for the gift of your church. I think each and every one of us around this fire can attest to just how miraculous there are moments in our lives where, to what Joe mentioned in his own story, of just stepping in to a radical moment like Fatima, where it's like, oh, this is, my life's changed from here on out, and knowing full well that that's going to be awesome. It's also going to be real. It's going to also have some maybe some burden and some cross with it, but that cross brings a lot of joy. Cross brings a lot of authenticity. We just thank you so much for how you've worked in Joe's life. Additionally, we thank you for Cookie in Joe's life. Thank you for their marriage, and we just offer up whatever your plan is for him in a small way. May the sacrifices and sufferings we embrace as men intercede and offered for whatever this diaconate journey may be, whether that's a reality or not. We trust that your plan will come to fulfillment in his life, and that our community will only be better whichever way you lead him and Cookie. We ask this all through the intercession of your most holy Mother Mary. Hail Mary,
Hail Mary,
full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Saint Joseph, terror of demons,
Pray for us.
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.